Almost 20,000 miles and over 12 months in our Toyota Grand Highlander, and what have we learned? Well, if you're watching this video, you are probably on the lookout for a big, comfy, and practical three-row SUV. We'll tell you all about the good, the bad, and the broken, and we'll let you know what it's worth after a year, because this is the Edmunds 1-year road test. We're Edmunds, and we test hundreds of cars each year on the road and at our private track, so you get the most trusted reviews. If you want to know which car, truck, or SUV is the best, then stick with us. We've got over 15 cars at any one time in the Edmunds 1-year road test fleet, and the Grand Highlander, well, that became a road trip favorite.
I used the Grand Highlander to drive my kid up north to college.
We took a big trip to see family.
I took the Grand Highlander on a road trip to Colorado.
I've taken multiple road trips, a few thousand miles.
I road tripped to San Diego and to Las Vegas.
Now, we keep these things for a year so that we can learn all about them just like you would. We learn about real-world fuel economy, the maintenance costs, the things you fall in love with, and the things you grow to hate. Now, we decided to get the Grand Highlander Limited, that's one step below fully loaded, with the Hybrid Max engine option. Because we wanted to experience most of the available features, but we also wanted to try out the engine that supposedly hits that sweet spot between power and efficiency. And this one here cost about $57,000. Of course, what you will pay depends on dealers in your area, but we've got tools on the site to let you know exactly what you should pay. So we've got links down below, or you can just hit that QR code. Now, while the Grand Highlander was in our possession, it was driven by a lot of people on the staff in every imaginable situation you can think of. And they had some pretty good things to say. Now, one thing that got consistent praise from everybody here with the Grand Highlander, that is comfort with a capital C.
As someone who is petite in stature, getting in and out of big SUVs can be annoying. But the Grand Highlander Hybrid made it easy. Plus, the seats are comfortable and have a lot of support, especially for longer drives.
I took the Grand Highlander on a road trip to Colorado, and I was very impressed with how spacious it was inside. As someone who is 6'4", having enough leg and headroom is always a pain point, but the Grand Highlander was extremely spacious. Even when I was driving and I had two very tall friends in the back seat, we had plenty of room.
And yeah, it is a road trip favorite as well.
This car really shines in comfort on long drives. I have an injured back and did a 10-hour drive, and having the lower heated seats really saved my back. So, huge win there.
Our Grand Highlander is a long-distance champ. It's got a comfortable ride, it's quiet on the highway, and the driver's seat, I've spent multiple hours on road trips, and I've been comfortable the whole time.
Now, usually we look towards the minivan as being a great example of a practical family hauler with a ton of interior storage. But honestly, the Grand Highlander deserves a lot of credit here.
My passenger loved the open shelf above the glove box. It's big enough for napkins, wallet, a phone, and having the separate USB-C port there kept their charging cord from getting tangled up with mine. We also love the giant door pockets and that big space underneath the center console, which is big enough to fit a purse.
I used the Grand Highlander to drive my kid up north to college, so we had to move quite a bit of stuff, including a bike. Luckily, everything was able to fit. However, would it have been great to go ahead and take out the back seats like I can on a normal minivan? Of course. However, we still were able to make everything comfortably fit.
We took a big trip to see family, and the Grand Highlander had plenty of room for 2 kids, 2 adults, a 60-pound dog, and all of our stuff. Car seat install was easy, and we had no problem reconfiguring one of the car seats to the back row to fit in 2 more adults. So we all had room to get to dinner. Oh, and the removable console that sits between the captain's chairs was really, really useful on the road trip for snacks or whatever. And then after the trip, when we got home, it was easy to pull out and clean.
Now remember, you can get the Grand Highlander with one of 3 engine options. You can get a turbocharged gas engine, which is really fun to drive, but it doesn't have the best efficiency. You can get a regular hybrid that gets 36 miles per gallon combined, but in our testing, we found it to be a little bit slow. Or you can get the turbocharged Hybrid Max, which has got more power than the regular turbocharged engine, but it is more efficient. So, what happened?
The Grand Highlander accelerates quick and incredibly smoothly, especially for a vehicle this big. On my road trip, I would pull over to take photos on the side of the road, and I was really impressed with how easily this car could get back up to highway speed.
It had tons of power for passing slowpokes on the highway, and the ride was super smooth. And we did get into some curvy stuff in the mountains, and the steering was surprisingly precise. One thing I did like is that the hybrid drive that's on the rear wheels, if you're going down a decline, if you lifted off the throttle, it would slow the vehicle like a Jake brake or a manual transmission. Also, it would help recharge the hybrid's battery.
Another staffer mentioned how easy it was to pass people on the highway in this vehicle, even at elevation. Just gobs of power, he said. The Hybrid Max is our favorite engine choice for the Grand Highlander, but what's awesome is that you can have a really good driving experience behind the wheel regardless of your engine choice.
I like how easy it is to see out of our Toyota Grand Highlander Hybrid. Specifically, the front roof pillars are thin, and that makes it easy to spot if there are cars or pedestrians kind of in your way as you're making a turn or you're driving through a parking lot. Also, the rear windows are pretty big and roomy, and that makes it easy to see what's behind you.
Surprisingly, this SUV is easy to drive. It's smooth and predictable. And actually, I like that it's big, but it doesn't drive big or didn't feel heavy.
So there's a lot to like about the Toyota Grand Highlander, and if you want to learn more, we've got a bunch of reviews and videos over on the site comparing this guy to the likes of the Hyundai Palisade Hybrid, the Honda Pilot, and the Nissan Pathfinder. Heck, we even put it in a giant 9-car comparo of the best 3-row SUVs out there. But when you spend as much time with a car as we did with the Grand Highlander, you are bound to find some things that you didn't like. I mean, at least we did.
Overly sensitive automatic emergency braking systems drive me nuts. Now, they're great if you like them on, but in a car like the Grand Highlander, where they're sort of activating and slamming on the brake to prevent collisions that aren't actually about to happen, you want to turn them off.
Now, another staffer mentioned turning off Toyota's proactive driver assist. Now, in this feature, if you're, say, approaching a stopped vehicle and the Grand Highlander doesn't think that you're braking quickly enough, it will gently apply the brakes. And by gently, I mean oftentimes jarring and just completely unprovoked braking, even in everyday driving experiences. And there's actually another feature that we didn't like so much.
The headlights are super bright, which is great for visibility at night, but I had an experience that made me think maybe it's a little bit too much. I was driving down the highway and I had a bunch of cars flash their brights at me, and it almost made me think like mine were actually on, and I had to double check that they in fact were not.
A number of drivers on staff also had problems with connectivity. See, the Grand Highlander has standard wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, but it just doesn't seem to work as consistently as we'd like.
So I was on a phone call while driving from Los Angeles to San Diego in the Grand Highlander Hybrid, and suddenly the Bluetooth connection just dropped. Immediately, a pop-up message came up on the screen saying that the wireless connection had timed out. Everything was working fine up until that happened, but since I was driving, I couldn't reset the connection unless I pulled over. Needless to say, super frustrating.
Now, more than one person experienced this timeout message early on in our ownership experience, but it hasn't happened lately, so it's possible that it's actually been corrected through an over-the-air update. But we've still just had problems with connectivity.
The Grand Highlander doesn't always connect to my phone when I start the car up. I've had to go into the touchscreen menu pretty frequently and try to manually prompt it to hook up Android Auto to my phone. Even then, it doesn't always work.
And then there is the fuel economy. Now, I will point out that in real-world testing of our 1-year road test fleet, the hybrids have never been able to match the number that is on the window sticker. Still, we expected more from the Grand Highlander. So over 20,000 miles of driving where we tracked every single fill-up, we only averaged 23.3 miles per gallon, far below the EPA estimated rating of 27. In fact, in only 5 fill-ups did we beat that EPA estimate. So what that means is that we're not getting the best range in between fill-ups. I mean, the most that we got on a single tank of gas was 348 miles. Now that might sound like a lot, but the competition can get 500 miles of range. I mean, the Toyota Sienna doesn't like that. Now, way back in 2014, we had a not-so-Grand Highlander, that's the smaller version, and in that we managed a 20 mile per gallon average. So this is actually a pretty big gain when you think about how much bigger this vehicle is. It's just that we spent nearly $60,000 on a hybrid and it doesn't even match the EPA rating? Come on. But maybe our biggest complaint about the Grand Highlander, I mean, listen, it is intensely competent and super practical. It's just that there's a lot of competition out there that can do the same thing, but they look better. They're much more stylish. This thing is, man, what a snooze fest.
Yeah, this is such a nondescript, unmemorable SUV, and I'll give you an example. I signed up to drive it for a road trip coming up, and I remembered I knew I'd driven it before, but I was thinking I couldn't remember when I drove it or even what I used it for. And it was to the point where I went back and looked on our log of sign in and sign outs of our 1-year road test vehicles. I looked at there and I realized I had driven it over the holidays and it put almost 1,000 miles on it. Complete blank. Like I don't remember that experience at all. And I was thinking, well, maybe it's just me, but I actually asked my son, who's pretty good about remembering all of our test cars, and he didn't remember it either. So I think really if you were looking for a vehicle to enter the witness protection program for something to drive around suburbia and no one is going to notice you or remember you, it'd be perfect.
Fortunately, the maintenance and repair story is nearly as boring as the styling.
We brought the Grand Highlander in for 2 regular service visits during our time with the car, and Toyota actually covers the first 2 maintenance visits for free. Now, those only would have cost a couple $100 over our time with the car, but it's a nice new car perk, and we didn't have any other issues.
Now, during one of those visits, the Grand Highlander did get a free recall fix for the rearview camera potentially not displaying an image. We never actually had that happen, but hey, a fix is good peace of mind, right? Now remember, we've got the Grand Highlander here in the limited trim with that hybrid max power plant, and it costs right around $57,000. After about a year, we've just been offered $50,000 for this car, and a depreciation of around $7,000 is pretty amazing. For comparison, our Hyundai Santa Fe hybrid, another 3-row hybrid SUV, lost 30% of its value in a year. We've had a run of Toyotas and Lexus vehicles holding their value incredibly well, and this is no exception. Now, if you're wondering how much your car is worth and you're looking to get a jump start on buying your next new or used car, we've got tools for that for you on the site. Just go on over to edmunds.com/sellmycar to get an instant offer right then and there. Sure, we've got some complaints here or there, but there is one complaint that we can solve right now. If you're willing to trade performance for better fuel economy, just get the standard hybrid and you can save $3,000. Or if you live in a place that's got really cheap gas, go for the turbocharged gas-only engine. That will save you $6,000 over the hybrid max. $6,000! Now, if you've got any questions or comments about the Grand Highlander, just let us know down below. Oh, and also, my producer thinks that I'm dressed like a sailor today, so let me know in the comments if you agree, because I do read every single one. And if you dug this video, give us the old like and subscribe, because it really helps us out in the old YouTube algorithm. So, what have we learned? Well, the Grand Highlander is almost everything that you would want in a big 3-row SUV. It is comfortable, it is incredibly spacious, it is reliable in our experience, and it is uber practical. In fact, the only arguments against it are the style and flair that you can get with the Kia Telluride or the Hyundai Palisade hybrids. But then again, those really aren't for everybody. So after a year, do we still recommend the Toyota Grand Highlander? I think John sums it up the best.
Once we got home from our trip, my wife commented, "I really like that Highlander." And she also asked, "When do we have to give it back and how much are they?"